The Grand Hall of the Alpha Centauri Diplomatic Center buzzed with activity. Ambassadors from 12 different species mingled under the soft glow of quantum chandeliers. In one corner, Ambassador Jack Howard sipped his drink and watched the gathering with practiced ease. After 15 years representing Earth in galactic affairs, very little surprised him anymore. A server drifted by with a tray of blue cubes that smelled like cinnamon. Jack politely declined. His communication implant chimed softly in his ear, the urgent tone making him straighten. "Ambassador Howard," said the voice of his assistant, "we have an emergency transmission from the Rylaxian delegation. Priority, Alpha." Jack excused himself from the Meribian trade minister he'd been speaking with and walked briskly to a private communication booth. The Rylaxians were among the oldest members of the Galactic Confederation. They rarely initiated contact outside of scheduled meetings. The screen flickered to life, revealing the angular face of Ambassador Zortak. The Rylaxians' normally smooth green skin was flushed purple around the neck ridges, a sign of extreme emotion in their species. "Ambassador Howard," Zortak said formally, "I am instructed by the unanimous decision of the High Council of Rylax to inform you that, effective immediately, the Rylaxian Federation formally withdraws from the Confederation, treaty with respect to humanity." Jack blinked. "I'm sorry, could you clarify?" "Furthermore," Zortak continued, "I am to declare that a state of war now exists between the Rylaxian Federation and all human worlds." For a moment, Jack stood frozen. The Confederation Treaty had maintained peace among the stars for over 3,000 years. No species had declared war on another in all that time. "Ambassador Zortak, if this is some form of cultural misunderstanding—" "There is no misunderstanding. The decision is final. Prepare yourselves." The screen went black. Jack immediately called Earth. Within 30 minutes, an emergency meeting of the Security Council was underway. Jack's hologram stood in the center of Earth's Grand Council chamber as he explained what had happened. President Alan Jackson leaned forward in his chair. Unlike many politicians, he preferred simple language and direct approaches. "So after 3,000 years of peace, the Rylaxians just decided to declare war on us, for no stated reason?" "That appears to be the case, Mr. President," Jack replied. Defense. Minister Carla Adams consulted her datapad. "The Rylaxians haven't fought a war in over 10,000 years. Their military is ceremonial at best." "Which makes this declaration even stranger," said Jack. The president rubbed his chin. "What do we know about their current capabilities?" Admiral Susan Miller, head of Earth's Defense Forces, stepped forward. Her position had been largely ceremonial since the signing of the Confederation Treaty. The Rylaxians have approximately 30 ships that could be classified as military vessels. Most are museum pieces kept for historical significance. Their technology level is roughly equivalent to our 22nd century capabilities. A soft chuckle came from someone at the table. "Is something funny about this situation?" the president asked. Vice President Debbie Clark couldn't hide her smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. President, but it's like being threatened by someone waving a butter knife. Our standard border patrol ships could handle their entire fleet without breaking a sweat." The president frowned, but others around the table were now hiding smiles too. Admiral Miller continued, "They have no meaningful offensive capabilities against modern human defenses. Their most powerful weapons couldn't penetrate even our civilian ship shields." "So what exactly do they expect to achieve?" the president asked. Dr. Olivia Martinez, Earth's leading expert on Rylaxian culture, requested permission to join the call. Her face appeared on a second hologram. "Mr. President, I believe I may understand what's happening," she said. "Rylaxian culture places extreme importance on ritual and perceived insults. In their ancient history, formal declarations of war were often made with no intention of actual combat. It was a form of extreme diplomatic protest. "So they're not actually planning to attack us?" asked the president. "They might attempt some symbolic action," Dr. Martinez explained. "But I suspect this is related to something they perceive as a grave insult. To the Rylaxians, declaring war is sometimes just a way of saying they're deeply offended." News of the declaration spread quickly through human space. Rather than causing panic, It sparked confusion, amusement, and a flood of jokes on social media. By evening, popular talk show host Betty Garcia opened her program with a 10-minute comedy routine about the terrifying Rylaxian threat. "I hear their fearsome warships run on actual combustion engines," she quipped to roaring laughter. "They've threatened to fax us their terms of surrender." In New Chicago, Joseph Brown and his friends watched the broadcast at their local bar. "Should we be worried about this?" asked his friend Kyle. Joseph shrugged. "My cousin works in planetary defense. She says their weapons are so old that our museums have better stuff. Do you think they'll actually attack?" "Who knows? The aliens are strange sometimes." On board the Earth defense ship Vigilant, Captain Michelle Rodriguez received new orders. Her ship patrolled the border near Rylaxian space. "Ma'am," her communications officer said, "Fleet Command wants us to maintain position but take no aggressive action if Rylaxian ships approach. We're to be polite but cautious." Rodriguez nodded. "So basically treat them like confused tourists?" "That's about right, Captain." 3 days later, long-range sensors detected movement. An enormous ship, nearly 2 kilometers long, slowly emerged from Rylaxian space. Despite its size, energy readings were minimal. "What is that thing?" Rodriguez asked her science officer. Lieutenant Peter Wells studied his screens. "According to our database, it's the Venerable Glory, Captain, a Rylaxian dreadnought from their 3rd Dynasty period. It's been in a museum orbital dock for over 4,000 years. Rodriguez stared at the image. The ship was beautiful in an ancient way, with sweeping curves and ceremonial engravings covering its hull. It looked more like a floating art piece than a warship. "They've actually pulled a museum piece into service," she said, unable to hide her amazement. "Are they serious?" "They're hailing us, Captain," the communications officer reported. The face that appeared on screen was Rylaxian, but younger than most Rodriguez had seen in diplomatic broadcasts. He wore an elaborate uniform, with medals and ribbons that looked ancient. "Human vessel," the Rylaxian said stiffly. "I am Captain Krelvor of the Imperial warship Venerable Glory. In accordance with the declaration of war, we challenge you to honorable combat." Rodriguez maintained her professional demeanor despite wanting to laugh. "This is Captain Michelle Rodriguez of the Earth defense ship Vigilant. We acknowledge your presence in this sector. May I invite you to join me for dinner aboard my vessel to discuss the situation?" The Rylaxian appeared confused by the response. "Did you not hear me, human? We are at war. We demand combat." Rodriguez smiled warmly. "And we'd be happy to discuss that over dinner. Our chef makes excellent Centaurian sea bass." As Krelvor sputtered in confusion, Rodriguez realized this war might be the most interesting thing to happen in her career. The news from the border spread quickly. Within hours, videos of the ancient Rylaxian warship were playing on screens across human space. People gathered in homes and public squares to watch Captain Rodriguez's encounter with the Venerable Glory. Against all expectations, Captain Krelvor had accepted the dinner invitation. Security footage showed the young Rylaxian officer and 2 of his crew sitting stiffly at a table in the Vigilance dining hall, clearly uncomfortable as human officers chatted casually around them. "This isn't how war is conducted," Krelvor said, poking at his food with a fork. "You should be firing your weapons at us." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "We prefer to talk first. Why exactly has your government declared war after 3,000 years of peace?" Krelvor straightened in his chair. "The insult to our honor cannot be ignored." "What insult?" Rodriguez asked. The Rylaxian seemed surprised by the question. "Do you claim not to know?" Back on Earth, President Jackson watched the recording with his advisors. The dining room conversation had revealed nothing specific about the reason for the war declaration. "We need more information," the president said. "Dr. Martinez, what have you learned?" The xenoanthropologist had been working nonstop. "Since the declaration, I've been reviewing all recent interactions with Rylaxians, Mr. President. I believe I've found something." She displayed images from a cultural exchange event held 3 months earlier on Mars. During this festival, we showcased foods from various human cultures. One chef prepared this dish. She zoomed in on a plate containing a reddish stew with small white cubes. "It looks like ordinary beef stew," said Vice President Clark. "Yes, but to Rylaxians, it closely resembles their ancient ritual meal called Kolvar, which translates roughly to victory feast. In their warrior past, this was only served after defeating an enemy in battle. Serving it to Rylaxian guests would be like challenging them to combat." The president sighed. "So this whole war is over a food misunderstanding?" "Their culture places extreme importance on symbolic gestures," Dr. Martinez explained. "To them, this wasn't a simple mistake. It was a deliberate challenge that requires a response." Admiral Miller, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "So what do they actually want from us? A fight they know they can't win?" "I believe they expect us to engage in some form of ritual combat," said Dr. Martinez. "They want us to acknowledge their declaration with appropriate seriousness, not laugh at it." The president nodded. "So we need to take this seriously, but avoid actual conflict." He turned to Admiral Miller. "Susan, prepare a diplomatic vessel. We'll send it to meet with their leadership directly." The EDS Concord was selected for the mission. Captain Daniel Bennett, known for his diplomatic skills, was given command. The ship was small but elegant, perfect for the delicate task ahead. As the Concord prepared to depart, news feeds across human space continued to treat the war as a source of entertainment. Comedy shows created skits about confused Rylaxian warriors. Children played new games called Human versus Rylaxian, always letting the Rylaxian side win at least once to be polite. On the Concord, Lieutenant Samantha Brown reviewed cultural briefing materials. As the ship's communications specialist, she would play a key role in the mission. "Did you see this?" she asked her colleague, Lieutenant Eric Johnson. "Rylaxians have 15 different words for honorable defeat, but no word for surrender. Their entire concept of war is about demonstrating courage, not winning. So they declared war on us knowing they'd lose?" Eric asked. "I think they expected us to follow some ancient combat ritual. Instead, we invited them to dinner." The journey to Rylaxian space took 4 days. During that time, more Rylaxian ships had emerged from their territory. None had fired weapons, but they positioned themselves in formation at the border, like actors waiting for the play to begin. Meanwhile, on Rylax Prime, the High Council was in session. Ambassador Zortak reported on humanity's response to their declaration. "They refused to engage properly," he said, his neck ridges flushed with frustration. "They treat our most sacred traditions as a joke. Their media outlets create comedy about our warriors. It is deeply disrespectful." Admiral Dozmal, an elder who had pushed for the war declaration, rose shakily to his feet. "This confirms what I have said for years. Humans do not understand honor. They must be taught." A younger council member, Tevlar, spoke next. "Perhaps we should consider that our understanding of humans is flawed. Their records show they haven't fought among themselves for over 1,500 years. Their response may reflect their own evolved traditions." "Nonsense," snapped Dozmal. "Our intelligence reports clearly show their history is filled with conflict. They simply don't consider us worthy opponents." Council leader Rez Noor, the eldest among them, raised a hand for silence. "A human diplomatic vessel approaches our space. We will hear their response directly." The EDS Concord arrived at the designated meeting point. A Rylaxian vessel twice its size waited there. Both ships extended docking tubes and established a neutral meeting room between them. Captain Bennett led a small team aboard. They wore formal uniforms without weapons, as advised by Dr. Martinez. The Rylaxian delegation, led by Zortak, wore elaborate ceremonial armor that looked uncomfortable and ancient. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Bennett began. "On behalf of Earth and all human worlds, I acknowledge your declaration of war and wish to discuss terms of engagement that respect both our people's traditions." The formal acknowledgement seemed to surprise the Rylaxians. Zortak's posture relaxed slightly. "This is acceptable," he said. "We require ritual combat between our champions to resolve the insult to our honor. May I ask what specific insult has caused this situation?" Bennett asked carefully. The Rylaxians exchanged glances. Finally, Zortak spoke. At the Festival of Worlds on your Mars colony, we were served the Feast of Victory, a dish only presented to those one has defeated in battle. It was a clear challenge. Assure you this was a cultural misunderstanding, Bennett explained. Our chef believed it was simply a traditional Rylaxian food and wanted to honor your delegation with familiar cuisine. Intention is irrelevant, said another Rylaxian official. The challenge was made publicly. It must be answered publicly. Lieutenant Brown, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. If I may, Captain? Bennett nodded, and she addressed the Rylaxians. In ancient human traditions, when challenges were issued unintentionally, they could be resolved through contests of skill rather than lethal combat. Would your customs allow for such a resolution? The Rylaxians huddled together, speaking quietly. After several minutes, Zortak turned back to the humans. We will consider this proposal. Return to your ship while we deliberate. As they walked back through the docking tube, Bennett smiled at Brown. That was quick thinking, Lieutenant. I hope it works, sir. The last thing we need is an actual war over a bowl of stew. Back on the Concord, Captain Bennett and his crew waited for the Rylaxian response. Lieutenant Brown used the time to learn more about Rylaxian customs. She discovered that their culture hadn't always been so focused on ritual and tradition. They were once explorers, she told the captain. Before they joined the Galactic Confederation, they were known for their curiosity and adaptability. What changed? Bennett asked. Peace, ironically. Without external threats, they turned inward. Their society became more rigid, more concerned with preserving the past than creating a future. After 6 hours, a message arrived from the Rylaxian ship. The council had assigned a representative to discuss Lieutenant Brown's proposal. To everyone's surprise, they requested that she meet with them personally. Me? Brown asked. Why? Perhaps they appreciated your knowledge of their traditions, Bennett suggested. You should go. This could be our best chance to resolve this, peacefully. Brown was escorted to a small chamber on the Rylaxian vessel. Waiting for her was a young Rylaxian officer she recognized from the earlier meeting. He wore less ceremonial attire now, dressed in what appeared to be a standard uniform. I am Krelvor, he said. You may remember me from your encounter with the Venerable Glory, the dinner guest who wouldn't eat, Brown said with a small smile. Krelvor's neck ridges flushed slightly. Yes, that was unexpected. As was your declaration of war, Brown replied. I have been instructed to learn more about these contests. Of skill you suggested, Krelvor said. Our elders are hesitant. Brown nodded. In our history, when conflicts arose between groups who wished to avoid bloodshed, they would sometimes arrange competitions. The outcome would determine who had the stronger claim, without loss of life. What sort of competitions? Krelvor asked, genuinely curious. Sports, games of strategy, tests of strength or intelligence, Brown explained. The exact nature would depend on what both parties agreed was fair. Krelvor considered this. Our traditions speak of similar practices from our distant past. Before the Age of Records, disputes between our ancient city-states were sometimes settled through champion contests. That's exactly the kind of thing I meant, Brown said eagerly. There is another concern, Krelvor said, lowering his voice. Some members of our council have exaggerated human military capabilities in their reports. What do you mean? Brown asked. To justify the war declaration, they described humans as dangerous warriors who regularly engage in combat. They claimed your peaceful appearance is merely a facade. Brown was stunned. That's not true. We haven't had a major conflict between human worlds in over 1,500 years. I suspected as much, Krelvor said. But Admiral Dazmal and his supporters have convinced many that humans need to be taught respect through this war. A war they know you can't win? Brown asked. Krelvor's neck ridges darkened in what she recognized as embarrassment. It was never about winning. It was about making a statement, performing our duty to tradition. I understand tradition is important, Brown said carefully. But is it worth risking lives over a misunderstanding? That is the question many younger Rylaxians are asking, Krelvor admitted. Not all of us share the Elder's rigid views. Meanwhile, on Earth, public interest in the Rylaxian War had only grown. News shows featured experts on alien psychology debating the situation. Social media was filled with memes showing confused Rylaxian warriors facing laid-back humans, offering them drinks instead of fighting. A popular morning show host, Cynthia West, joked, "I heard the Rylaxians are so determined to fight us that they're dusting off spears from their museums. Our scientists are trying to figure out if we should pretend to be hurt when they throw them at our shields." The audience laughed, but not everyone found the situation amusing. Professor Gary Martin, an expert in interspecies relations, appeared on a more serious news program. "We're missing an opportunity here," he said. "The Rylaxians are reaching out in the only way their culture allows. Instead of mocking them, we should be trying to understand the deeper meaning behind this gesture." In space, Admiral Dozmal grew impatient with the diplomatic talks. Against the Council's instructions, he ordered a small fleet of 5 ships to attack an uninhabited human mining facility in the border region. The ships, all ancient vessels recommissioned from museums, approached the automated station. There, weapons outdated by several centuries fired upon the facility. The mining station's basic shields easily absorbed the attack. Its automated system sent a routine alert to the nearest human outpost but classified the incident as a minor energy fluctuation rather than an attack. When news of this victory reached Rylax Prime, Admiral Dozmal announced it as proof of Rylaxian military prowess. Vids of the ships firing on the station were broadcast across Rylaxian media. No mention was made of the complete lack of damage to the target. Human observers detected the incident but, following their instructions, to avoid escalation took no action. Instead, President Jackson authorized a surprising response. Within 24 hours, a small civilian transport delivered gift baskets to each of the 5 Rylaxian ships that had participated in the attack. Each basket contained Earth delicacies, a bottle of champagne and a card reading, "Congratulations on your first battle. Here's to many more peaceful resolutions in our future." The Rylaxian crews were baffled by this response. Captain Nevrin of the lead ship stared at the basket in his quarters. "Are they mocking us?" he asked his first officer. "I don't think so," she replied. "According to our cultural database, humans often exchange gifts to mark significant events." "They're treating our attack like a child's first steps," Nevrin said. "I don't know whether to be insulted or impressed." On Rylax Prime, the council was divided over how to proceed. The younger members, led by Councillor Tevlar, pushed for accepting the human proposal of skill contests. The traditionalists, following Admiral Dozmal, demanded more military action. Council leader Reznor finally spoke, silencing the chamber. "For 10,000 years our people have prided themselves on wisdom. Where is that wisdom now? We declare war over a meal, attack defenseless stations, and ignore peaceful overtures. This is not the Rylaxian way." The chamber fell silent. "I have decided," Reznor continued. "We will accept the human proposal for contests of skill. A delegation will be sent to arrange the terms. This war will end before it truly begins." "Admiral," Dozmal rose in protest. "You would surrender our honor so easily?" "I would preserve it," Reznor countered. "True honor lies not in blindly following ancient traditions, but in finding wisdom to adapt them to present circumstances." As news of this decision spread, Lieutenant Brown and Krelvor continued their discussions on the neutral meeting vessel. What had begun as formal negotiations had evolved into a genuine cultural exchange. "I believe we can find a solution that respects both our peoples," Brown said. Krelvor nodded. "I think so too. Perhaps this misunderstanding will lead to greater understanding." The news of the Council's decision spread quickly across both Rylaxian and human space. On Earth, President Jackson called a meeting with his advisors to discuss next steps. "They've agreed to the contests," he told the gathered officials. "Now, we need to make this work in a way that lets everyone save face." Admiral Miller nodded. "The Rylaxians need to feel their honor is satisfied. We need to show respect for their traditions while avoiding actual conflict." Dr. Martinez pulled up, Her research notes. In ancient Rylaxian culture, contests between rivals typically included three components: tests of mind, body, and spirit. What exactly does that mean? Asked Vice President Clark. Mind would be strategy games or puzzles, Dr. Martinez explained. Body would be physical contests like races or wrestling. Spirit is more complex. It usually involved artistic expression or demonstrations of cultural values. President Jackson thought for a moment. So we need to organize a kind of interspecies Olympics? Essentially, yes, Dr. Martinez said, and the location is important. It should be neutral ground, somewhere neither human nor Rylaxian. The Xanthi Collective has offered to host, said Jack Howard. Their central station is equipped for multiple species, and they have a long history as mediators. Perfect, the president said. Now we need a team. People who can represent humanity without making this situation worse. On the Concord, Lieutenant Brown was surprised to receive a direct call from Earth Command. She was even more surprised by its contents. They want me on the human contest team? She asked Captain Bennett after the call ended. You've established a good relationship with Krelvor, Bennett explained. You understand their culture better than most now. Plus, your idea got us this far. I'm not an athlete or a chess champion, Brown protested. I'm just a communications specialist, which makes you perfect for the spirit competitions. This isn't about winning every event, it's about showing respect while finding a path to peace. The human team came together quickly. Frank Cooper, a Marine with Olympic-level swimming credentials, would lead the physical challenges. Dr. Lily Rodriguez, a quantum chess champion, would handle the strategy games. Brown would participate in the cultural exchanges, along with 4 other specialists in various fields. As preparations continued, public opinion on Earth evolved. The initial amusement had given way to genuine interest in Rylaxian culture. Schools held lessons about Rylaxian history. Restaurants offered special menus of Rylaxian-inspired cuisine, carefully avoiding anything resembling Kolvar. A week before the contests were set to begin, Admiral Dosmal made one last attempt to derail the peaceful resolution. He released classified reports claiming that humans had secretly violated the Confederation Treaty for centuries, building hidden weapon systems and plotting against other species. The accusations were quickly proven false when Earth voluntarily opened its military facilities to inspection by Confederation representatives. The Xanthi observers found nothing unusual. If anything, they were surprised by how much Earth had converted former military installations into scientific research centers and public parks. The failed attempt cost Admiral Dosmal his position. The Council removed him from command and placed him under house arrest for falsifying intelligence reports. Younger officers, including Krelvor, were promoted to fill the leadership void. On the day the human team departed for Xanthi Central Station, crowds gathered to cheer them on. News cameras followed their journey. President Jackson gave a brief speech that struck the perfect tone. You go not as warriors but as ambassadors, he told the team. Your mission is not to defeat, but to connect, not to win, but to understand. Show the Rylaxians the best of humanity. The Xanthi Central Station was a massive structure, a perfect ring around a small artificial sun, built to accommodate dozens of different species. It featured adjustable gravity, atmosphere, and lighting in different sections. The station's central arena had been modified for the contests, with viewing areas for both human and Rylaxian spectators. When the human team arrived, they found the Rylaxian delegation already there. Krelvor, now wearing the insignia of a fleet commander, greeted them formally. Lieutenant Brown, he said, it is good to see you again under more organized circumstances. Brown smiled. Congratulations on your promotion, Commander. A result of recent personnel changes, he said diplomatically. I will be leading the Rylaxian team in the contests. The Xanthi mediator, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, called both teams together to explain the rules. The contests will take place over 3 days. Each day will feature one category of challenge: mind, body, and spirit. Each team will earn points based on performance. The team with the most points at the end will be declared the victor. What happens if we win? Frank Cooper asked. According to the agreement, the winning side may claim satisfaction in the conflict. The mediator explained. The war will be officially recorded as resolved in favor of the victor. The contest began the next day with the challenges of the mind. Dr. Rodriguez faced a Rylaxian master in their ancient game of Kolshar, similar to chess, but played on a three-dimensional board. Despite never having played before, she managed to force a draw by applying quantum positioning theory to her strategy. In the mathematical challenge, the humans narrowly won by solving a complex equation just seconds before the Rylaxian team. The coding competition ended in another draw, when both teams created equally elegant solutions to a problem involving interspecies translation. By the end of the first day, the humans led by a single point. The Rylaxian spectators were visibly surprised by the outcome. They had been told for generations that humans were physically strong but intellectually inferior. That evening, Brown found Krelvor in the station's garden area, designed to mimic a Rylaxian forest. He was sitting alone looking at the artificial stars on the ceiling. "Your team performed well today," he said as she approached. "So did yours," she replied. "That Kolshar game was fascinating. I'd like to learn it someday." "I could teach you," he offered, then added quickly. "Once this is all resolved, of course." "I'd like that," Brown said. "How are your people reacting to the contests?" "With surprise, mostly," Krelvor admitted. "For so long we were told that humans were simple, warriors with little appreciation for strategy or culture. Yet today you proved yourselves our equals in areas we pride ourselves on. And tomorrow we test physical skills," Brown said. "Your team might be surprised there too." Krelvor's neck ridges flushed slightly. "We have studied human athletic capabilities. We do not expect to win many points tomorrow." "You might be surprised," Brown said with a smile. "The point isn't to crush your team. It's to find mutual respect." As they talked, more members from both teams joined them in the garden. What began as a casual conversation evolved into an impromptu cultural exchange. A Rylaxian musician brought out a traditional string instrument. Frank Cooper shared stories of Earth's oceans. Dr. Rodriguez and her Rylaxian counterpart discussed the mathematics of music. Watching from a distance, the Xanthi mediator made notes in its log. Day 1 of official contests complete. Unofficial contest of friendship already showing promising results. The second day of contests focused on physical challenges. The arena had been transformed overnight to accommodate various tests of strength, speed, and endurance. Spectators from both species filled the viewing areas, and many more watched via broadcast across human and Rylaxian space. Frank Cooper stood with his teammates studying the Rylaxian competitors. They were taller than humans on average, with lean bodies that suggested speed rather than power. "Remember the plan," he told his team quietly. "We're not here to dominate. Keep the scores close." The first event was a swimming race through a course designed to be fair to both species. As expected, Cooper took an early lead. What surprised everyone was how quickly Krelvor closed the gap in the final stretch. Cooper won by just half a body length. "You didn't tell me you were a swimmer," Cooper said as they climbed out of the pool. "On my homeworld, I lived near the Silver Lakes," Krelvor explained. "I swam every day as a child." The next event was a Rylaxian game similar to handball, but played on a three-dimensional court with shifting gravity. Here, the Rylaxians had a clear advantage, winning by a comfortable margin. The human team showed good sportsmanship, congratulating their opponents with genuine respect. Throughout the day, the pattern continued. Humans won the pure strength competitions, while Rylaxians excelled at events requiring balance and precision. By evening, the overall score was tied. More importantly, the atmosphere had changed. What had begun as a tense competition now felt almost festive. That night, a message arrived from Earth. President Jackson had authorized a special banquet to be held after the final day of competition. The menu would feature dishes from both cultures, carefully selected to avoid any that might have ritual significance. The third day dawned with excitement. The final category, spirit, was the most subjective and, in many ways, the most important. These contests would test artistic expression, cultural understanding, and the values at the heart of both civilizations. The first challenge involved storytelling. Representatives from each team were given an hour to create a story that would resonate with both human and Rylaxian audiences. Lieutenant Brown had spent weeks studying Rylaxian folklore and drew upon those patterns while telling a tale about cooperation between different species to solve a cosmic mystery. The Rylaxian storyteller, an elder named Virtel, told an ancient legend but modified it to include human characters alongside the traditional Rylaxian heroes. Both performances received enthusiastic applause from all spectators. Next came music. A human quartet performed a piece that blended classical Earth styles with elements of Rylaxian harmonics. The Rylaxian musicians responded with a traditional war chant that had been rearranged as a peace anthem. Again, both sides scored equally. The final challenge was the most important. Each team would perform a ritual that expressed their deepest cultural values. The Rylaxians went first, presenting an elaborate ceremony that honored their ancestors and celebrated the continuity between past and future. The human team had prepared carefully for their response. Led by Brown, they performed a simplified version of an ancient Earth tradition, the planting of a peace tree. They invited the Rylaxian team to join them, each person adding soil around the small sapling and speaking a hope for the future. "We bring not just ourselves to this moment," Brown said as she placed her handful of soil, "but all who came before us and all who will come after. This tree represents our shared commitment to growth and understanding." When the ceremonies were complete, the Xanthi mediator calculated the final scores. The result was a perfect tie. "This is unprecedented," the mediator announced. "In all recorded contests, there has never been an exact draw." The crowd fell silent, waiting for a decision. Council leader Reznor, who had arrived to witness the final day, rose from his seat. "If I may," he said, approaching the central platform, "Rylaxian tradition does provide for such an outcome. In ancient times, when champions fought to an honorable draw, both sides could claim satisfaction if they agreed to a lasting bond of friendship." President Jackson, watching via hologram from Earth, nodded. Earth would be honored to form such a bond with the Rylaxian people. The announcement was met with cheers from both human and Rylaxian spectators. The war that had begun with confusion and laughter was ending with genuine connection and respect. In the celebration that followed, Frank Cooper found himself deep in conversation with a Rylaxian athlete about training techniques. Dr. Rodriguez was teaching Kolshar to a group of interested humans while learning Rylaxian mathematical notation in return. Brown and Krelvor stood apart from the crowd, watching their teams mingle. "Did you plan for a tie all along?" Krelvor asked with a knowing look. Brown smiled. "Let's just say we were careful not to win by too much in the areas where we had advantages." "As were we," Krelvor admitted, "though your team surprised us in many ways." "So what happens now?" Brown asked. "Does your council consider the matter resolved?" "More than resolved," Krelvor said. "This outcome is being hailed as ideal. The traditionalists can claim we stood our ground against the mighty humans. The progressives can celebrate the new friendship between our peoples." "And what about you?" Brown asked. "What do you think about the outcome?" "I think," he said slowly, "that sometimes misunderstandings lead to understanding. Without this war, our peoples might have continued to orbit each other distantly for another 3,000 years. 1 month later, Earth hosted the first human Rylaxian cultural festival. The event opened with a formal ceremony where President Jackson and Council leader Reznor planted a peace tree descended from the one used in the contest. Around its base, they placed soil from both Earth and Rylax Prime. The festival featured foods from both worlds, with clear labels explaining any ritual significance, music performances, art exhibitions, and sporting events. Most popular were the mixed teams with humans and Rylaxians competing together rather than against each other. Admiral Susan Miller, whose role had been largely ceremonial for years, found herself with new purpose. She led a joint training program where human and Rylaxian officers exchanged knowledge and built relationships. The ancient Rylaxian ships, briefly pressed into service for war, were returned to museums with new exhibits explaining the war that wasn't. In a quiet moment during the festival, Krelvor found Brown watching children from both species playing a game that combined elements from human and Rylaxian traditions. "I've been assigned as cultural liaison to Earth," he told her. "I'll be staying for at least a year." "That's wonderful news," Brown said. "There's so much more of our world I want to show you. Beginning with those swimming lessons you promised," he reminded her. "And the Kolshar games you owe me," she countered with a smile. Across the festival grounds, humans and Rylaxians continued to meet, talk, and laugh together. What had begun as a declaration of war had transformed into something neither side had expected: the beginning of a true friendship. On Rylax Prime, the Council made a formal addition to their historical records. The entry for the conflict with humanity read simply, "The Challenge of Harmony," in which both sides claimed victory by finding strength and understanding. In schools across human space, children learned the story as the war where nobody fought. It became a popular lesson in cultural understanding and the power of laughter in the face of conflict. As for the bowl of stew that had started it all, it became a traditional dish served at human Rylaxian diplomatic functions, renamed Friendship Feast, and enjoyed by both species as a reminder that even the greatest misunderstandings can lead to greater harmony.